Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards, welcoming you to InFocus, a weekly program where we take a closer look at what's happening within and across the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, your government. Since assuming office on August 2022, Prime Minister the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew and his cabinet has initiated a wide-ranging and restructuring strategy to the country's Citizenship by Investment program. Key measures were taken to strengthen governance, risk and compliance protocols, and to enhance customer service at the Citizenship by Investment unit, which was transformed from a government department to a statutory body on October 1st, 2024. Now, these decisive actions have been instrumental in maintaining the trust and confidence of global stakeholders and regulatory bodies. Here today to discuss the impact of these reforms and the future of the Citizenship by Investment program is His Excellency Calvin St. Juste, the Executive Chairman of the Citizenship by Investment Unit. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business.
So I finally say, and I can't say it enough, thank you to all of you who have been so important in terms of getting us to this point where the CIU in St. Kitts and Nevis will be seen to have a business model that is second to none. And with those few words, I want to say, let's see you continue to grow.
Focus and allow me now to welcome for the first time and hopefully not the last is His Excellency Calvin St. Juste, the Chairman of the Executive Chairman, that is, of the Citizenship by Investment Unit. Your Excellency, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Right. And so there's a lot to discuss, of course, and you know, you've been at the helm for a while now, and so we want to talk a bit about the reforms that are taking place. And so we're going to start with your leadership and the post that you lead in the CIU unit. And it really comes at a time when there's transition in terms of policy and procedural reforms, as mentioned at the top of the program. Now, it also includes a change from a government department to a statutory body. It includes the extra regional attention that the Citizenship by Investment program, not just of St. Kitts and Nevis, but of course the countries that participate in the region as well too, has had from international partners. And of course, persons have to be mindful of the extra scrutiny that the U.S. administration may be paying at this time, of course. So what motivated you to say yes when you were offered the job to be executive chairman of the Citizenship by Investment unit?
Yeah, that's absolutely a great question. I think first and foremost, just to sort of set the records straight, is actually I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis. I've heard many different contexts. I actually grew up from the village, so in that regard. And in terms of, you know, my time being away from St. Kitts and Nevis, I think there's always an element of coming home at some point in time. And sometimes, you know, when we think about coming home, there's an element of perception that you have to be physically here. But coming home is your contribution, your intellectual capacity, your natural resources is various ways. So my time here in St. Kitts before I immigrated to the US, you know, I actually worked here. As I said, I grew up at the village. I spent time in Market Street. I think it's now called M Street. There's various contexts, and actually also spent time in the Newtown area. I had a career. You know, my first job, and I always give this story at the age of 12, I was a TDC scholar. And, that has been such a rewarding approach in terms of getting the exposure as a young age in the principles of leadership, the principles of how company works, the principles of people interaction. And then after that, I obviously spent time here, went to the various school, and I had a time at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank prior to me leaving. And that also gave me an element of, the exposure at a higher level of, from a financial perspective.
And also it's a regional agency, of course.
It is a regional agency. Right. And my time in the U.S. obviously has spent a number of years in the financial arena and the big companies, the J.P. Morgan, obviously Morgan Stanley and T. Rowe Price. And I had a very, very, very successful career there in terms of being at the C-level area. And prior to that, what I would say is I also supported in whatever capacity as a special envoy, and I think individuals may or may not be aware of that. And in that capacity, while I was away, it's provide advisory support in certain investment perspective. And so I did that roughly for, I would say, a year and a half or so forth. And then I was invited. I think I used that word cautiously in terms of, when the Prime Minister invited me to see if there was something I can support in and acts if this would be an opportunity I would be considered. And obviously it was a tough decision because having a very successful career in the U.S. and being whether both an investment banker, a private banker, economics, you've done exceptionally well. But it came at a point in time of an inflection where I always use the Maslow hierarchy, where you have all the various checkbox in the foundation, and then how can you contribute back in some shape or form? And so I said yes. And saying yes really was an adventure when I just stepped into the role. But I have the skill set. I've done this similar work in transforming organization, very large organization. I've managed hundreds, close to thousands of people. So it came very easy when I stepped into the role because I already had a roadmap of what to do, and I've done it outside of St. Kitts and Nevis, and this gave me an opportunity to bring back those skills and expertise to contribute to St. Kitts.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, during your leadership, we would have seen the transformation of the Citizenship by Investment Unit from a government department to a statutory body. Now, can you tell us a bit about some of the changes that were necessary to make to facilitate that transition?
Yes. So I think, it goes without saying. You make changes when changes are either needed or changes are forced upon you. And I commend the federal government in terms of taking a decisive decision to make very hard choices. And those choices required a number of regulation changes that may, on the surface, may appear not favorable, but they were made from a long-term perspective. Transitioning a 41-year government department into a statutory corporation isn't easy. If knowledge served me right, I think this is probably the fastest we've seen in terms of transitioning from a government entity into a statutory corporation. And so the transition required a number of things. One, obviously, there were certain regulatory changes that were required from a regulation perspective in terms of our price point. There were certain decisive decisions needed in terms of the type of investors we were looking for. And that in of itself contributed to some of the changes in the regulation. And in terms of what we had to do from a practitioner perspective, it was relatively fast. We had to transition where we had a situation where we now had to hire all the staff back in. So there's a decommissioning of the old all government department, and then you had to now establish a statutory corporation. I must say I highly commend my Board of Governors, who did an exceptional job. It was a monumentous task in regards to creating job description, hiring on weekends and late at nights, even to the tune of no lunch. We joke about it. We had, if I'm not mistaken, the highest application rate ever, over 1,000 plus, that told us that people were interested, and application globally. And that was a signal to our diaspora population. And similar to the earlier question, there was definitely a signal that people are looking to contribute. And it showed me, and it showed the leadership team, that we had individuals, whether in the region or outside the region, who had the skill to really demonstrate the bench strength in transitioning into a statutory or a corporate body, and preparing this unit to deliver. So we created, we had an executive leadership team. It's our C-suite. We then made it very clear that we will follow 6 core principles. These were our foundation in terms of who we are as it relates to transparency, communication, good governance, transformation, and global leadership and sustainability. These are sort of the core 6 principles that we decided that's how we will transition. And we've followed those for the last 100 days.
What informed those 6 pillars that you just outlined?
Absolutely. I think the area of importance that was required when I stepped back and looked in terms of where St. Kitts and Nevis was in regards to the CBI program and what the international market desired and the international market changes or volatility required, it helped me understand the first thing, and even most importantly, I undertone this, what our local citizens in St. Kitts and Nevis was asking for. And the first one was on transparency. Transparency, at times we use the word as lip service, right. But we want it to be transparent. There's a series that we developed which is called CBI 101, and we need to always understand the premise of why this program existed. And it existed, as I said, 40 years ago. And it existed as we were transitioning as an independent country and to some degree away from sugar. And we needed to find another industry, this tiny country in the world. What can we offer? How can we survive? And the framers did an amazing job in looking at how can we offer, as we say, the rock to the world, but ensure that we still protect it as best as we can. So transparency was important, that we can show and demonstrate openly that what we are doing and the importance of it. The other area was communication. I think that was an area, and similar for me to be here, there were very little signal coming out in terms of our local citizens to understand this significant revenue generator agency. What is it doing? Communicate to me. Let me know when this investment comes in. Where is it going? And so we've been very deliberate in saying we are open. We're open for business to the global world, but we're also open for business for our local citizens here. And we've been very decisive in that. So communication, we're happy to have the dialogue. We're happy to engage as needed. We understand there's certain things we may not be able to openly share, but we will share the public knowledge information because, as you can imagine, there's national security risks that expose. The other area in the 6th principle that we saw was critical, transformation. And the aspect of transformation is change. And how do you transform a 40-year-old company and government entity to a statutory corporation? And the Prime Minister gave me a laudable task, and he said, you need to make this as a business, and not just a business, a world-class business, because your stakeholders, your clients, they're not in St. Kitts. They are international. You're dealing with very high net worth individuals, the wealthiest of the wealthiest. And so you have to transform. And so we've done an amazing job, and I'll talk about a little of that in terms of some of our digital transformation, some of our international customer service, some of our what we call cultural and dynamics in terms of how you engage with individuals from different parts of the world. And the other one was global leadership. It was very important that we were the first. And being the first, you set the tone of what others have now followed.
That's right.
And it is important that we share that we were the first, and we don't be shy about it. Be bold, that we were the first. We were the one who created this industry.
And not just in terms of creating it, but in terms of setting the standards, setting premier standards that has the organization, the statutory cooperation on the service that it offers as number one in recent rankings by international agencies.
And you said it perfectly. Being the first and others model. And a number of the programs internationally are modeled off of St. Kitts and Nevis, even to the extent where it's almost as if they took the blueprint and went to another country and replicated what. And what that tells us is what we're doing something good. We're doing something great, and you're absolutely right, the standard. And we upheld a significant standard for 40 years. In Wall Street, when you think about investment, there's something called volatility, and people get scared when, or what's happening now, when the market goes down, because then people pull out, they get scared. But it's really about the tenacity and perseverance. The strong investors, they stay in, because it goes down with the understanding that it's going to go up. And those are the ones who sort of stay. And we knew we were going to rebound back into where we are as number one in this space.
Okay, and so you mentioned the 6 core principles, and one of them that you touched on, that I mentioned earlier, was good governance. How is the CIU strengthening governance, risk management, and compliance to uphold the integrity of the CBI program and ensure that only reputable investors qualify for citizenship?
Absolutely. And you used the keyword, investors. And this is one of the key things where, we're sort of returning back home. And I think I want to dispel what the perception is. We're not selling passports. I have to put that out there. I think obviously people have their views. We're not selling. The CIU, what we do, we go through a very thorough process in terms of determining who can invest a substantial amount of their funds. It is a minimum of 250,000, some of our products, and that's US, in the equivalent to close to 600,000 EC dollars. And when someone is making that significant investment, there are really 3 core principles that we want to make sure. One is that this individual does not pose a risk to first St. Kitts and Nevis. We pride ourselves. We're very proud people. We're a very proud individual. And when someone says they're a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to ensure, we wish to ensure, that we can ensure that this individual is worthy. And that's a critical word. It's not that we open in the Pandora box and allow it never. You are worthy. And so we partner with international law agencies. We partner with international due diligence companies who do a thorough, what we call vetting, to ensure that if Calvin has decided that he wishes to invest and become a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, that we at the CIU can comfortably say, Calvin is worthy to carry the brand name and being called a Kittitian or a Nevisian. And so we go through a very, very, very thorough due diligence process. And that's a risk exposure. We partner with our local law enforcement, whether it's our financial intelligence unit or white collar, in terms of ensuring that they themselves can also give us that confident level that these individuals who are wishing to be part of St. Kitts and Nevis are that individual of reputable stance. And then lastly, what I would say, what we also wish to do, we partner with our international partners. And when we talk about international partners, it is the UK, because as we have visa-free access to the UK, the EU, from the EU Commission perspective, as we have visa-free access via the Schengen Island, and then also the U.S. Treasury, because they oversee a significant aspect of our financial services, and we are favorable based on our passport. And so we know the due diligence and the risk is important, because we are not only protecting our borders, we are also protecting their borders. So compliance, to ensure that everyone follows to the right compliance, and in making sure that we de-risk the program.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier you referred to, of course, the volatility in the markets. Is there concern that there may be some rumors of possibly a recession taking place in the United States, or the trade wars impacting in terms of how the economies function? Of course, we've seen some movement in terms of peace between Ukraine and Russia, which would, of course, be of benefit to stabilize the economy somewhat. But is there concern that these volatility in the international market may impact persons who may decide to make an investment in the economy here?
You know, the one thing I can tell you about the Citizenship by Investment, or the CBI program, we thrive when there is instability. And it's not perhaps the greatest thing to say, but it's just the reality. We are always looking at the geopolitical environment. We're always looking at, you know, what's happening in various jurisdictions, because we are in the people business, and very high net worth individuals do not like volatility when it comes to their safety and security, when it comes to their wealth preservation. And so when there is a level of instability in certain region, we then see an opportunity where those individuals are looking to invest their wealth, to invest you know, in terms of their safety and security in a stable environment, in a stable political environment, in a stable, you know, banking environment. And that's where we're seeing those levels of attraction. In regards to the recession aspect, as you mentioned, we're very close to the U.S. So if the U.S. sneezes, we catch a cold. That's the traditional saying. So we have to be cognizant of what's happening all around us. You know, our stakeholders. Yeah, there's interesting commentaries when I return and I hear it's, yeah, why is the chairman always traveling? He's always on a plane. You know, he's in some different. And I always say to everyone, our stakeholders, our clients, they're not in the village. They're not at St. Peter's. They're not in St. Paul's. They're in Dubai, they're in Singapore, they're in Nepal, they're in Philippines. And they want to see us. They want to know who is this country that I'm going to invest this significant funding and bring my family. So we have to be there to them. And when there's instability, we need to provide that level of comfort to tell them you will be in a safe and secure environment if you invest in St. Kitts and Nevis. All
right, Excellency. Of course, as we mentioned, the CIU was transitioned to a statutory cooperation, and we want to talk a bit more about that and how it's been working since then, but we're going to take our first break before we delve into that discussion. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with His Excellency Calvin St. Juste, the Executive Chairman of the Citizenship by Investment Unit here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So now, as we mentioned, the transformation from a government department to a statutory body or statutory corporation, it's essentially been in about 100 days plus now. Mid-January, I think, was about when it hit the 100-day mark. Can you tell us the key milestones that have been achieved since then?
Yes, you know, I'm happy to report, you know, the fact that when we transition to statutory beginning October 1st of 2024, we have seen a number of the changes and implementation of of various key things have now demonstrated the reward that we were, and successes. The first thing that was quite notable that we saw is 169% increase in applicants within the 100 days in comparison to the first 9 months of 2024. And what that told us was that we're doing something right, that individuals are coming back to our shores and they're seeing a level of confidence to invest. We then launched what's called the Office of the Chairman. And the intent of the Office of the Chairman really was around a center of excellence. We saw there was a need to focus on real estate and development completion. It goes without saying, there had been certain perhaps missteps in terms of when one is looking to invest in a real estate perspective, it must be completed. And so we put a number of rigor around this process, and we decided that this needs to sit, this whole process needs to sit in the Office of the Chairman. And so all applications will be reviewed and approved. It will be reviewed and approved based on international standards from a real estate development perspective. We have engaged our local project managers to have level of oversight, and construction engineers to ensure that milestones are met and the cost is quite appropriate from a market perspective, and quantity surveyors as well to ensure that as we are looking from an investment perspective, that we are protecting the investors, but also that there is a demonstration that what was initially architected can be delivered.
Now, just to touch on
Sure.
that, of course, in the real estate option, does that extend to previous projects as well that would have been done prior to your taking office, prior to even this government taking office?
So, as one would say, if it comes through, now you're taking over, do you own it? What we are doing is evaluating what our purview is as a statutory corporation. I think that is in conversation with our legal minds, what our responsibility is in terms of what we can and cannot do, because in each of these there's vested interests. Invested interest by different stakeholders. And when you have multiple stakeholders, you obviously have to go to each one and then negotiate. So right now, that is something we are evaluating and speaking with our legal representative in terms of our purview.
Other key milestones that you care to mention?
Yeah, the other thing we did, I would say, when we saw a significant win, is we implemented communication and division. And we decided that 24 hours response time is critical for our stakeholders. So we decided to implement a 24-hour response time, because when we transitioned, the response time was almost 3 years. An individual was actually getting any notification on the status of the application. And you can imagine the impact someone would have. One, you lose confidence. Two, it damaged the brand. If we say we're the first and we say we're the finest, there's no way you're the finest if you're not responding. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to implement a 24-hour response time and create a communication division. The other area of success that we've done is a digital transformation. We are in emerging technology, and we wanted to bring that into our program, and so we're now we'll be releasing a digital platform to our international stakeholders that they now can have direct access and see the workflow of each of the application along with a dashboard. So, and then lastly, I would say a significant milestone we call is we moved to a new area, and we say we're in the people business from an external perspective, but we're also in the people business for our internal side. And so we saw the benefit of moving into a new location and environment where individuals can be more productive. And there's in addition to that, what I would say is, in that 100 days, we're now seeing a significant uptick in individuals coming back into St. Kitts and Nevis in regards to our program. We're seeing new markets reaching out to us rather than we reach out to them because they've heard about the rebound and the transformation that's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis CBI program.
Right. And as you speak about having this application where persons can be kept up to date in terms of their applications, would it include information such as possible investment options here in St. Kitts and Nevis where they can direct some funds and do some further investment? Because of course the investment opportunity must not necessarily be a one-time. There are other opportunities that are available, and certainly of course that would help to generate and stimulate the economy.
So that's a very important area, and what I decided, and it's important that we have what we call penetration investment. Penetration investment, as you alluded to, is you're not investing for one time, and individuals of high net worth, they're always looking for other opportunities, and so we wanted to ensure that first we get the investment, and once we have demonstrated, the success, who we are, because we're the entry point. And this is where we have to be realistic on, this is a business. An individual who may have never heard of St. Kitts and Nevis, and based on perhaps our great marketing, now decides that I will engage and get a citizenship within St. Kitts and Nevis, then the entry point of the face is us. An economic citizen sees us. And so how we handle that individual, our customer service. And so once we've captured them, we are actually in the process of penetration investment, which is St. Kitts and Nevis has other products and services that are affordable to you. St. Kitts and Nevis has other level of investment. So we partner with our skipper agency, and as well as Nevis Invest Association, to then ensure that we can demonstrate and showcase. We are having an investment gateway summit. Our inaugural summit took place last year, and we got great feedback. And this was exactly what you alluded to, where we had economic citizens or citizens who have never visited the country decided there's an opportunity here. And so we wanted to open that pathway with this summit to give them the opportunity where they will meet with policymakers, where we will present other projects, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a resort, whether it's our exposure to our financial products, such as trust and multi-foundation from a Nevis perspective, and some banking services, or even tangible investment. So that's what we're looking to do at this summit.
Okay, and speaking of the 100 days, of course, as we continue to look at the impact, what would you say are the benefits of the restructuring now in terms of autonomy, efficiency, and of course, compliance?
The benefits of the restructuring, as you mentioned, autonomy, efficiency, and compliance is one. We now operate as a corporation. We're no longer a government entity. As a statutory corporation, we can make decisions. We immediately have a board of governors, and we can quickly make decisions within the realm of our regulation. We can create policies and quickly, and we can pivot as needed without having, to some degree, the level of bureaucracy, unfortunately, that a government entity would have.
Hence the 3 years.
Hence the 3 years. In terms of, and efficiency, in terms of efficiency, we now can quickly develop processes and remove redundancy in the system that would have taken a number of weeks or even to the degree months, and now we have now transitioned those into something that can take days or to some degree hours. That gives us efficiency that we have seen has been very helpful to our branding, and a number of our clients love speed. And obviously, as you mentioned, risks and compliance. We have actually partnered with our UK Home Office and invited them to come and assess us. And they've recently they participated in a risk assessment with our FSRC, with our white collar group with FIU, a number of the law enforcement agencies just to ensure that they can provide that level of technical assistance. And that's transparency. You know, when you invite an international partner to come and have that open door, we know that we're comfortable in what we're doing. We know there's no hidden areas, and they, you know, and give them the opportunity to assist us, and give them the opportunity to then say, listen, St. Kitts and Nevis is transparent. They're running this program at a higher level with efficiency and integrity, and we want to make sure that they continue to have that level of access to
and of course, speaking to compliance, the due diligence process, of course, it's not necessarily a one-off anymore. It's an ongoing process where persons are continued to be scrutinized in terms of their activity and in their involvement in other international engagements.
The due diligence is continuous, and this is where we see the benefit of what we do. It is a continuous aspect. So it is not that we allow an individual access to our citizenship and thus give them access to a passport, and that's it, we move on. Right. There's continuous due diligence, there's continuous monitoring that we do, and we plan to extend that even further, because we are aware of the risks that extend globally.
Okay. Now, as you mentioned, of course, the Prime Minister wishing the CIU to be transformed to run essentially an international business. That's the term that he used, and you also repeated here as well. Now, of course, on Monday, we would have seen the new location for the Citizenship by Investment Office, and that would be at Limekeel. The move to a new building, how would you say that would impact operations of the CIU?
Well, what I would say is, and I mentioned this, we're dealing with people, an environment. Unfortunately, where we were was not conducive. It definitely didn't demonstrate, when we talk about the world class. And again, no fault of anyone. It was an opportunity. It was where the space in aspect could have been. And so we made a significant decision and said, listen, we will invest not only in the processes or the products, we will invest in our people. And in investing in our people, we then decided to relocate the CIU and retrofit retrofit a building to be at the standards of what we classify world class, with various monitors, brand new cubicles, lighting and everything. And we made a decisive decision that we will use local individuals. I must give credit to our local contractor who did a phenomenal job. And as my team know, I love speed, and I'm very decisive in certain decisions. And we gave Kishmu Queely, and his business name is, and it sounds funny, but he demonstrated, seeing is believing, and we were able to see, and now we believe. We gave him an audible task of 10 to 12 weeks to complete a retrofitted building and make it into an international standard. And he and his team worked day and night using local workers from across St. Kitts and Nevis, and it was quite satisfying, because sometimes we always assume our local workers cannot complete something for whatever thought processes, but we saw it. Retrofitting an entire building, breaking down walls, working at night, 1, 2 in the morning, to meet this laudable task, and they delivered, and we were able to have a ceremonial opening this week on Monday, and where we invited the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and various CBI regulators and economic advisors to participate, and the feedback has just been absolutely amazing.
Absolutely, and of course, as you mentioned, the work practice of the contractor, very important as well too, because anyone who travels overseas, sometimes you're on the highway and you would see workmen out there in the middle of the night. They have their floodlights and they're working in the night, and that's something certainly that as St. Kitts and Nevis continues to develop, that we think would have to become standard.
Yes.
Because, of course, we want to do business with the world, and in order to do that, then, of course, you must have those practices. And speaking of international, let me jump into the next question here for you. How has your international engagement support the global marketing of the CBI program, and a wise direct outreach, based on what you were saying in terms of going to Dubai and going to other territories and countries, essential for maintaining St. Kitts and Nevis' position in the investment migration industry?
So what I would say is, in the last 100 plus days, I've traveled to 20 cities, 4 continents, and I had over 500 plus engagement. And even to the tune of where I recently traveled to 5 to 6 cities in China in roughly seven days. And obviously it was not a joyride, but it was needed. It needed to be done. It needed to be done because when you're rebuilding confidence in individuals, when you're rebuilding confidence in investors, you have to show up. And we made a decisive decision that we have to be there. We know there are other players involved, and we needed to be there. And as a result of that, we have seen an uptick. We've seen individuals who, when I first came on board last year, told me bluntly, I will no longer recommend clients or investors to St. Kitts and Nevis. I have individuals who told me unequivocally that St. Kitts CBI is dead. These individuals are now telling us they're no longer going to recommend clients to other CBI program, only to St. Kitts and Nevis, because of the transformation, because of the engagement, because we show up, because we were there, we were confident that we could do it, and we demonstrated that we can, and we executed in it. So those international engagement has definitely been demonstrated that level of success. Those outreach, I mentioned the fact that I need to show up. I need to be there with the our international competitors. As you may have been aware, the U.S. is now in the CBI program.
A gold card.
The gold card. And we say we are the premier, we say we're the first, we say we're the finest. But not only the U.S., Georgia has actually released their CBI program, the country Georgia, while I was in Asia at the same time, at the same price point as St. Kitts and Nevis, but a different symbol in euro, which just gave me confidence that what we were doing at shifting our price point at 250, they also shifted their price point to 250 euro. Those level of outreach, I can tell you, is now even to the extent where we're hearing individuals who already decided that they may have had a second citizenship or second passport. Just the fact that they've heard the rebound and there's engagement, that they're coming to St. Kitts. That just speaks volume. So they've made an investment in another country, another Caribbean country, and now that they said, listen, I've always wanted to be part of St. Kitts and Nevis, that they're even making now that second investment into St. Kitts and Nevis. So those international and direct outreach have definitely demonstrated significant reward, and we want that to translate obviously into investment here in St. Kitts, and it can come directly, and people should begin feeling it in their pockets, and all begin seeing some of the developments in short order.
Right, and as you say, feeling it in their pockets and seeing the development, we certainly would want to speak a bit about how the investment from the CIA Citizenship by Investment program is certainly impacting the local economy, but we're going to take our final break before we get into that discussion.
Thank you.
Stay with us, we'll be right back with more In Focus.
So I finally say, and I can't say it enough, thank you to all of you who have been so important in terms of getting us to this point where the CIU in St. Kitts and Nevis will be seen to have a business model that is second to none. And with those few words, I want to say, let's see you continue to grow.
Welcome back to InFocus. We continue our discussion with His Excellency Calvin St. Juste, the Executive Chairman of the Citizenship by Investment Unit here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And Mr. Chairman, I think we've had a good conversation laying out how the CIU and the Citizenship by Investment program has rebounded on the international market, some of the key reforms that has been taken, and really showing that St. Kitts and Nevis is on the right track. That point that you mentioned in terms of Georgia, it certainly signals that St. Kitts and Nevis continues to lead the way in the international market as well. Now, persons here that live in St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it is a national or a resident, help us to understand how the CIU contributes to the local economy and what key programs have been funded through CBI investments that are really enhancing the quality of life for nationals and residents here.
Yeah. I think this goes to the core of transparency, our number one pillar. And I think we haven't done a great job of demonstrating or communicating where this investment goes. And sometimes we see the large investments or we hear about the large investment, but we don't understand it because perhaps we may not directly feel it and not touching. But let me give you a little insight in terms of where this investment goes. It goes into the social development programs that we have here, whether it's budget boosts, whether it's Elevate, whether it's Lift. These are the programs. The funds that comes in subsidize to some degree our electricity costs. The funds that come in even to the cooking gas that we have. The funds that we get in the CBI. And again, what we have to understand, and it's such a delicate balance. And I just want to say this, where until we get to a point where we can be at a diversified position, and this is the goal of the federal government, this is what we have. And we cannot in any way damage it because it also pays the salary of our civil servants. And that's some of where the funding goes. And you can imagine it touches everyone. There's either a family member or friend, whether in one of these social development programs, or perhaps working in one of the government. That's to the extent of where this revenue comes in, this extensive revenue. It keeps the foundation. And yes, when there's an opportunity for us to demonstrate that we have excess, then we will definitely want to ensure that it gets into the hands of our individual. But it keeps the lights on. And the minute this goes away, the lights goes off. And so we have to be prudent. We have to be cognizant because, as you mentioned, everything we do say, the international world is looking, whether it's real or not real. In their minds, then it's real. And so therefore, if we say certain certain things that perhaps could create a negative brand, that's what is written in a report, and then that's perhaps maybe a determination if we still maintain our visa-free access. I'll mention to your point around further what we touch. We have this aspect we call a public benefit option. Public benefit options are capital projects that the government decide that is important to enhance and elevate our citizenship, our citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. The expansion of our RLB International Airport. So the expansion of our airport. We have that as what we call a public benefit option. And the revenue from citizenship will be part to expand to support our tourism. The Bastia High School that you would have heard, that is part of our citizenship by investment public benefit option because we're investing in the education of our people. And so we have this product, and so why not use this product to invest and advance our individuals? And so the expansion and the building of our Bastia High School is part of our public benefit option that will be leveraged via our CBI revenue. And even further, I'll sort of close on this point in terms of how it's touching the amphitheater. We realize we have a lot of young individuals who are creative, who want to demonstrate that artistry aspect. And so we said, why don't we use our revenue from the citizenship to also advance and enhance our creative individuals. So the amphitheater, or the Prime Development Creative Arts Center, is being funded by the CBI. So it touches on just the simple things, as I said, whether it's the electricity or it's the subsidy of the electricity, or perhaps some of these social programs, Lift, Boost, Elevate, all the way to very large initiative that we need, that we know touches the citizens here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right, and that speaks, of course, to overall development. When you're speaking about tourism, education, of course, the creative economy, those are things that most persons in St. Kitts and Nevis are directly affected by and participating. So, looking at all of these reforms, sir, and we have just about 10 minutes left in our program, and it goes by very fast, but what does the future of the Citizenship by Investment program in St. Kitts and Nevis look like? And do you see any policy improvements that are in line to come will help to further enhance it?
That's a great question. We're always thinking, what's next? We're always thinking, how can we ensure that we are sustainable continuously? We're on a journey of becoming a sustainable island state. And becoming a sustainable island state wasn't an easy feat. And how do you do that? Requires investment. Everything we do requires investment. And so for us, we are always looking at ways in terms of how can we grow the business, how can we grow the program, but how can we ensure that we grow it exponentially, but also maintain the risk aspect. And so we're going to leverage artificial intelligence as a way to de-risk it in looking at various themes, and also give us access to other markets and what the benefits are. We're going to make various policy changes, as you mentioned, in terms of the new world, even from an investment perspective. Digital assets is here to stay. And we need to be educated, and we need to be in that business. And we know our high net worth individuals, part of their source of wealth is leveraging Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. And so we are also going to make open that we can take that as a source of wealth, to ensure that we open that market. The other areas I would say is, what we're looking to do is make sure that St. Kitts and Nevis show up. We are no longer in a situation where we have 2 or 3 competitors or 4 competitors. We have the big boys coming in. Mm-hmm. And we're always looking, and we have to be in alignment with what else can this small nation provide to support us standing out to the bigger players. What is the reason someone would decide to come to St. Kitts and Nevis versus going to Georgia, versus going to Malta, versus going to Portugal? So we have to innovate, but it's a teamwork. That is important. Once, we may be the face upon entry, but then once they enter and they in that regard, what we do, our products, when individuals visit, that's where we are looking for various innovation to ensure that we can continue to transform the program, as I said, digital transformation using artificial intelligence, and even making sure that we're taking into consideration beyond the fiat type currency, but using crypto as another area.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the Sustainable Island State Agenda and some of the projects that will be coming on board to help to power St. Kitts and Nevis' development, that certainly is very important as well too, as the CBI must be in tune with the focus of the government to transform this country and help to drive that.
And that is the core of our one of our key products, which is the Sustainable Island State Contribution. That is the pivotal where those non-refundable contribution goes. Those non-refundable contribution are in alignment with the federal government's sustainable island state agenda, renewable energy, leveraging food security, protecting our blue economy, using various technology from an innovation, digital transformation. That non-refundable contribution is truly in alignment to ensure that we help propel the government into the goal of becoming a sustainable island state.
Right. And finally, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned, of course, that the Citizenship by Investment Unit has a program called CBI One-on-One. You mentioned how important it is to be able to communicate with the public. How does it, CBI, the CIU, I should mention then, intend to further that engagement with the public?
Yes. We're going to further the engagement from a verbal perspective, but we're also going to further the engagement by showcasing what's happening. And so, we are in the process of getting an RFP out to complete an audit. Request for proposal, sorry. Okay. to get an audit completed and showcase to those inquiring minds of what's happening in the program. But further to that, we are also looking for opportunities that we can show up. What else can we do to ensure two things? There's an economics element in terms of the investment, but there's a risk factor. We're in the national security, immigration, investment business, and each one of those domains, you have to think in terms of how best you can, one, protect the borders of our citizens and making sure that people can feel safe and walk late at night. Our tourist industry is protected and based on the applicants and the right applicants coming in. We need to make sure we de-risk those areas, aspect of making sure there's no bad characters getting the program. And then also the aspect of the investment, making sure those investments. So communication, as you mentioned, in terms of transparency, we're happy. You invite us, we show up. Mm-hmm. We will tell you. We love talking about CBI, what is it, 101. But we want to tell you what it is and how it impacts you and the reason why we have this program. And our goal is to support in getting us diversified into other economies so that we don't have to rely on this program. We don't have to have this as the only one of the key only. And I commend the government in terms of some of the diversify, as you mentioned, geothermal energy in terms of what that's going to look like, desalination project, and various economy, whether digital economy. But as of now, this is what we have, and we have to protect it. And we will do everything possible to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis remain for another 40 years in the CBI business and be successful.
Right. Any final comments that you'd care to leave us with?
Yeah, first off, thank you. I think, just having the opportunity to share with everyone, what St. Kitts and Nevis CIU is about, our transformation that we've undergone, and we're now seeing the successes of it. And, we truly want to just give a commendation to each and everyone who was part of this journey. Just understand that St. Kitts and Nevis has been the first, and we consider ourselves the finest, and we will ensure that we uphold all the relevant standards of integrity and accountability and transparency, but making sure we protect who we are, making sure we protect our citizens, and finding the opportunity for their continual development.
Executive Chairman of the Citizenship by Investment Unit, Your Excellency Calvin St. Juste, thank you so much for being with us on this edition of InFocus.
Thank you.
And certainly, of course, as you mentioned, there's so much more to discuss. We'd love to have you back sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All right. And we'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place, at the same time. Remember, it's InFocus, your government, your business. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.